In the late summer of 1888 began the world's most notorious murder mystery. Between the 31st of August and the 9th of November occurred a series of murders, so gruesome, so bloody, horrible, and evil, all carried out by one man, a man who came to be known as Jack the Ripper. In the 1880s, London's East End was a cauldron of violence, poverty, and drunkenness. And Victorian Whitechapel was a stark contrast to the glamour and prosperity of the famous London landmarks just minutes away. Nearly 1 million people lived in the East End at this time, amidst a maze of narrow, overcrowded streets and dimly lit yards and alleys. Assaults on women in the streets, even in their homes, were commonplace. Moreover, for many of them living in abject poverty and squalor, prostitution was the only alternative to starvation. It was often highly dangerous and sometimes fatal, as we shall discover. In the opinion of most authorities, Jack the Ripper struck 5 times, beginning in Bucks Row on the 31st of August, 1888. PC John Neal finds the body of Mary Ann Nichols. Scotland Yard placed Chief Inspector Donald Swanson in overall charge of the investigation and sent Inspector Frederick Aberline to supervise the search for the killer in Whitechapel. Public outrage at this sadistic murder turns to fear and horror the following week, when the body of Annie Chapman is found. Inspector Aberline and his men still have no clues as to the identity of the killer, and a sense of terror hangs over the streets of Whitechapel like a fog. On the 30th of September, Louis Diemschutz discovers the body of Elizabeth Stride. In Mitre Square, a policeman finds the corpse of Catherine Eddowes. On the 9th of November, the Ripper strikes for the 5th time, indoors at Miller's Court. In the space of 10 weeks, the slaughter of 5 prostitutes, all within a mile of each other, spreads fear and anger through Whitechapel. Police and vigilantes fill the streets, and angry mobs attack so-called likely suspects. It should be remembered that the practice of criminal detection was still in its infancy, and forensic science barely existed. Enormous efforts were made, though, to capture the killer. Some 600 police officers were drafted into the Whitechapel area. 2,000 lodgers were questioned, and 80,000 leaflets and handbills were distributed. Nevertheless, both the public and the newspapers were unforgiving in their condemnation of the apparent incompetence of the police. The Metropolitan Police Commissioner, Sir Charles Warren, was a particular target of abuse, and he resigned after the murder of Mary Kelly at Miller's Court. According to the police at the time, an enterprising journalist first penned the name Jack the Ripper, a name which would achieve chilling and lasting notoriety. But who was this mysterious fiend of Whitechapel? Step back through time with us now, as we retrace the bloody steps of the monster known as Jack the Ripper.
Right way along the back, please, ladies and gents. Come right way.
It is the early hours of August the 31st, 1888. PC John Neal enters Bucks Row and finds the body of Mary Ann Nichols, known locally as Polly. He sees that her throat has been savagely cut. Poor Polly's intestines bulge through a terrible gash in her abdomen, and her lower body has been savagely attacked with a knife. At about 6 a.m. on Saturday, the 8th of September, John Davis goes into the backyard of 29 Hanbury Street, where he has a room. He sees the body of a woman, Annie Chapman, lying beside the fence, her throat cut through to the spine, as though the killer has attempted to remove her head. Part of her intestines has been placed on her left shoulder. Other parts of her body have been taken away by the murderer. On the 30th of September, at 1 a.m., as Louis Diemschutz turns his pony and trap into the yard behind 40 Berner Street, his pony shies, and he discovers the body of Elizabeth Stride. But her corpse bears none of the mutilations of the previous murders, apart from the now characteristic double stroke of a knife across the throat. Can it be that Louis Diemschutz has disturbed the killer by his untimely arrival?
Blimey! You did give me a start, and no mistake. Here. What are all you nice ladies and gents doing hanging around the streets of Whitechapel at this time of night? This is no place for the likes of you. Quick, come inside, and you'll be nice and safe in there. And you, other loves, you can wait back there for a while. I'll come and get you in a minute. You come inside. Now, for your own safety, stay close together whilst I goes and gets a policeman to take care of you. What was that?
Hello?
Oh, thank God, a copper!
Now then, what are all you ladies and gentlemen doing hanging around the streets with the likes of her?
I was trying to be helpful. I didn't want them getting into no trouble now, did I?
Well, now you just make sure you don't get into trouble. Get off the streets of London quick as you like for your own good.
I'm going to try and be helpful. I don't know where to go with me for. I'm going to try and be helpful. I don't want to get in trouble.
It is now 1:45 a.m., less than 1 hour since the discovery of Liz Stride's body. Here in Mitre Square, a policeman finds the corpse of Catherine Eddowes. Some of her internal organs are missing. A letter, allegedly from Jack the Ripper, and dated just days before, on the 25th of September, threatens to clip the lady's ears off, just for jolly. The killer, it seems, has tried to do precisely that. On a nearby wall is written, "The Jews are the men that will not be blamed for nothing." A cryptic message left by the Ripper, or a piece of anti-Semitic graffiti. On the day of the Lord Mayor's show, the 9th of November, the Ripper strikes for the 5th time. Mary Jane Kelly rents a room here at 13 Miller's Court. Sometime after 4 a.m., Elizabeth Prater, who lives in a room above Kelly's, hears a faint cry. Mary Kelly's cries have been ignored. 2 lumps of flesh have been set on the bedside table. The heart and kidneys have been removed. A doctor, Thomas Bond, is called in to examine the body. In his own words,
"The whole of the surface of the abdomen and thighs was removed. The arms mutilated, the face hacked beyond recognition of the features. The tissues of the neck were severed all round, down to the bone."
the slaughter of 5 prostitutes, all within a mile of each other, spreads fear and anger through Whitechapel. Everyone wants to know, who is Jack the Ripper? Not far from here, at the Whitechapel mortuary, Inspector Aberline and Dr. Llewellyn ponder the possibilities.
So, Inspector, who do we have on our list of favourite suspects?
Well, Doctor, what about the Polish barber?
George Chapman? I think you're the only person to believe that. Anyway, a poisoner rather than a butcher, I think.
George Chapman was hanged in 1903 for poisoning 3 wives.
There are many who think the Ripper is John Pizer, the shoemaker.
Ah, the one they call Leather Apron.
Yes, he was identified as the man seen arguing with Annie Chapman in Hanbury Street. Surely, Inspector.
Oh, sorry, Doctor. The man had an alibi for the Nichols murder, and the witness who apparently saw him arguing with Chapman has been discredited.
Well, what about Kaminsky?
Very strange, Doctor. Now, what do you make of this? The only person believed to have had a good view of the Ripper immediately identifies Kaminsky as the killer, then refuses to give evidence.
Aaron Kaminsky was a Polish immigrant living in Whitechapel. He was known to have a hatred of women, particularly prostitutes, and had strong homicidal tendencies. He was put into a lunatic asylum in 1889.
Who else then?
Oh, lots, including names in high places. Very high places. A certain grandson.
You do realize what you're suggesting?
Prince Albert Victor, the Duke of Clarence. Problem is, Doctor, he has a cast-iron alibi too. There's evidence to show that he wasn't even in London at the time of 2 of the murders.
There may, however, indeed have been a royal connection. It is now widely believed that Jack the Ripper was none other than Sir William Gull, Queen Victoria's physician. There were other suspects, of course, among them Dr. Neil Cream, who, as he stood on the gallows in 1892, about to be hanged for poisoning 4 prostitutes, is alleged to have declared, "I am Jack the..." just as he dropped to his death. Richard Mansfield, the American actor, caused such a sensation with his dramatic stage presentation of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde during the Whitechapel murders that many believed him to be the Ripper. John Druitt, a failed barrister, was named by a high-ranking police officer as a suspect. Just weeks after the death of Mary Kelly, he committed suicide. Some say because his mind became unhinged by the horror of Mary Kelly's murder. Barrister, barber, surgeon, slaughterer, prince, or pauper. Who was the Ripper? Everyone at the time had an opinion, a view. And yet, more than a century later, researchers are still trying to identify with certainty the mysterious killer of Whitechapel, whose evil spirit still pervades the truths and legends of Jack the Ripper.